creator of our world one or many? This age-old question, monotheism versus polytheism, has captivated humanity for millennia, but we no longer have to blindly guess the answer. Using logic and reason, we can definitively know that our creator is indeed one. In my last video, we concluded that our world has a creator. Now we take the next step, exploring the nature of this creator. We first have to determine if our creator is many or just one. If our creator is not plural, the creator must be one. Plurality implies division, while unity is without division. There's no third option between plurality and unity. There's no third option between being divided and being undivided. So if we can conclude that our creator is not plural, then our creator must be one. Remember, when we're talking about oneness, it's something that we really can't comprehend. We'll have a video explaining what this absolute unity actually means. But for now, we're just seeking to prove that God is not plural. This video is the first in a three-part series where we analyze 7 arguments that prove our creator is just one. In this video, we'll explore the first 3. The first, causes are always fewer than their effects. The second, the creator's essence transcends incidental properties. And the third, unity precedes plurality. Let's start with the first argument. Causes are always fewer than their effects. To some, this may be obvious, but we'll still try to elucidate. Imagine you're baking a cake. You mix together the ingredients, you bake it, and I come and ask you, well, why are you baking the cake? You say, it's someone's birthday. I ask you, why is it someone's birthday? Well, someone was born. Why was someone born? Their parents existed. And so I can keep asking you why, but notice what happens. As I ask why, the causes become less and less, to where the causes of our baking a cake are more numerous than the causes of someone being born. So as we ascend this causal chain, we ultimately come to one cause, which is the first cause, which must be the creator, independent and infinite. We can compare this causal narrowing to categories in a hierarchy. I don't remember much from my freshman high school biology class, but I do remember that the animal kingdom has a hierarchy. For example, the dog genus has many species under it, like Labrador retrievers and poodles. But as we ascend the animal kingdom hierarchy, we go from genera to families to orders to classes until finally we end up at the broadest category, life itself. So just as these categories narrow in the hierarchy, causes also narrow until we end up with one ultimate cause. One final example to crystallize this idea. You flip on a light switch, it turns on the light. How did it turn on? The electrical circuit completed. What powered this electrical circuit? The power grid. What powers the power grid? A power plant. What powers the power plant? If it's a coal power plant, it's probably coal. And where did this coal come from? Ancient plants were compressed and heated underground. And what caused those plants to grow? The sun. And what caused the sun? And see how we started with a flip of a switch turning on a light, to now we're at the sun. You see how these causes are constantly narrowing as we ascend this chain. So tracing back step by step, simple actions like flipping a switch lead us to one ultimate cause as we ascend the causal chain, the final cause, the creator. Okay, let's move on to the second argument. The creator's essence transcends incidental properties. This may be a little bit confusing, but it'll help us really understand why the creator can't be plural. So let's first define essence. The essence of something is its fundamental nature, or the core of its being. So the essence of a chair is maybe an object for sitting. No matter its color, size, or material, a chair is still a chair if it functions as an object for sitting. Now, incidental properties, on the other hand, they are characteristics or traits that can change without altering the object's essence. So the color or material or design of a chair can all change without necessarily changing the essence of the chair, an object for sitting. We can change the color of a chair from blue to yellow and it still remains a chair. Incidental properties are dependent on something else to exist. Color, for example, is an incidental property. It depends on light. Now let's talk about plurality. Plurality is an incidental property. So it depends on parts being combined to exist. Without parts, plurality wouldn't exist. Just like without light, color wouldn't exist. And let's take this even deeper. Let's say we have two apples. When we say two apples, we mean that there are two separate objects that share the same essence of appleness. But the number 2 is not part of the essence of an apple. It's just a way of describing how many there are. Hopefully you can now understand the difference between essence and incidental properties and how plurality is an incidental property. Now let's tie this to God. God must be completely independent. Remember, he's the first cause, so he must be independent. Incidental properties are dependent. Think of a painter. The painter's essence is not defined by any one painting the painter creates. Similarly, God's essence is not defined by any of his creation. If God were plural, we would actually have a serious logical contradiction, namely that something cannot be both the cause and the effect. God created everything, including plurality. So if he were plural, he would be defined by something that he created. But that's impossible because something can't be both the cause and the effect of something. So the argument is that God cannot be plural because he's the source of plurality. Perhaps this analogy may make it easier to comprehend. Imagine you're building a house. The house wouldn't exist without you, the builder. Now, it would be nonsensical to say while you're building it that the house is building itself while being built by you. The house can't be the cause of its creation while also being the created thing. And taking this even further, the builder is independent of the house is dependent on the builder. Thus, the builder, independent of the house, cannot be defined by the house. So this same idea applies to plurality. Plurality, which is the state of being more than one, depends on something to create or cause it. If God is the creator of plurality, he cannot also depend on plurality to define his essence. He would be both the source, the creator of plurality, and the result, something defined by plurality, at the same time. And this is logically inconsistent. So again, the creator's essence must transcend incidental properties, like plurality. Our next argument is one of concepts. Unity precedes plurality. Imagine a hot pan on a stove. Before we can say that that pan is hot, we must first understand the concept of heat. Heat as a concept must exist before we can recognize or describe something as being hot. Similarly, unity as a concept must exist before we can recognize or describe something as being one. Unity is a foundational concept that must exist before we can count or identify individual things. Now let's consider plurality. Plurality is essentially a collection of unities, a sum of ones. So plurality depends on unity. Plurality cannot precede unity because unity must exist before we have plurality. Think of numbers. The number 1 comes before all the other numbers. Without 1, you can't have 2 or 3. Unity is the building block that makes plurality possible. Without it, we can't have plurality. So what does this mean for the creator? Well, if someone claims the creator is more than one, they must concede that there must be a prior unity, a foundational unity, that allows these plurality of creators to exist. But that creates a contradiction. If a preceding unity exists, this plurality of creators must depend on something for its existence. And we know that the creator is independent. The creator cannot depend on anything. Dependency undermines the idea of a creator being the ultimate cause of everything. Now, it's important to remember that this unity is not just a numerical one. It's really a oneness that we can't comprehend. But we know that it's independent, indivisible, because divisibility implies plurality. In another video, I will cover what this absolute unity really means. Still try to remember that God can only really be known in two ways: from what he is not, and by observing the effects he has on the world. Hopefully this video helped prove logically how the creator must be unity and not plurality. Again, we said that causes are always fewer than their effects. The creator's essence must transcend incidental properties, and unity precedes plurality. Stay tuned for the next video where we more explicitly address the concept of the Christian Trinity. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed.